Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 10 in this series, the magical bishop. We're going to see a position where the bishop is actually stronger than the rook. We all know that the rook is stronger than the bishop. When we were taught chess, we were taught that the rook is worth about 5 pawns and the bishop about 3. Although lately I see more and more that the bishop should be assessed as worth 3.5 pawns. Probably to show that it's stronger than the knight, especially when the two bishops are together. Anyway, the rook is supposed to be stronger, but we're going to look at a position where the bishop outmaneuvers, outwits and outplays the rook. The position on the board is a chess composition. It was created by T. Davidson and it was published for the first time in the Montreal Daily Witness in the year 1899. It's white to play and checkmate the black king in 6 moves, and there's only one way to do it. And in doing so, we'll see the bishop dominating the rook. When we look at the position and we do a body count, we see that white is a pawn up in this endgame of rook and bishop versus rook and bishop. If we look a bit further, then we see that the black king is almost checkmated. It doesn't have any squares. All these squares are taken by white. But the king is not in check, so it's not checkmated yet, but it is in trouble there on h5. As we'll see, this is a battle between white's bishop and black's rook. The other pieces are just observing this battle and are not moving in the solution. If you want to put the video on pause and want to see how can white checkmate a black king in 6 moves from here, then have a look for yourself. It's all about checkmating the black king, of course, and from this position, white has a checkmate move with bishop e8 and also with bishop e2. Those moves would be checkmate, but for the moment, those squares are nicely covered by the rook. So it is not checkmate yet. And the only way to checkmate in 6 moves is to play, as the first move, the bishop from b5 to a4. What does that move do? Well, it creates a new checkmating square on d1. That will be checkmate. You can only then interpose the rook and the rook will be taken and that is checkmate. And also we still have that threat on e8. The bishop cannot do anything, so the black rook will have to make sure that it covers both those 2 squares. Shouldn't be a problem. The rook is much more powerful than the bishop, covers a lot more squares. And indeed, rook e1 can be played, covering the d1 square and still keeping an eye on the e8 square. But now white plays bishop b3. Again, the threat is still on d1, but also now on f7. No problem, says the rook. I'll just step aside and cover both the d1 square and the f7 square. You still cannot give checkmate. The battle goes on. White plays bishop c4. That's the only move that leads to mate in 4 from here. And now the e2 square is the square to give checkmate, as well as still the f7 square. No problem, says the rook. I go to f2 and I cover both e2 and f7. You have to come up with something better than that. Well, white comes up with something better. It plays the bishop to the b5 square. That's where it came from 4 moves ago. This is quite an amazing composition. And this is the only way to checkmate the black king in the prescribed number of moves. The bishop is back where it started, but the rook has been outmaneuvered and cannot cover both the e2 and e8 squares, because that's how it all started. This square will be checkmate and this square will be checkmate. In the starting position, the rook was on e4 and it covered those squares nicely. But now, being on f2, there is no move for the black rook where it can cover both e2 and e8. So black is busted. Let's look at one example. You can play rook f8 to at least cover one of the 2 squares, but then there is bishop e2 check. You have to interpose the rook, there's no other legal move, and the rook gets taken, and this is the 6th move, and the black king is checkmated in the prescribed number of moves. So let's look at it again because it is so beautiful in the replay. The only way to checkmate the black king in 6 moves is to dominate the rook, and the only way to do that is by moving the bishop around in 4 moves back to its original square. Rook f2 and bishop b5, and black has run out of defenses. He can only cover one of the 2 squares, and then he gets checkmated this way. T. Davidson, 1899. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, you don't really like chess very much. If you did like this composition, then please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like this video, then please share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.